This is the Kaylie and Carol show. I'm Kaylie.
I'm Carol.
For those of you who don't know us or are newer to listening to us, we like to reintroduce ourselves every couple episodes. So we're Chicagoland mediums, mother and daughter, and we offer in-person sessions, online sessions, but we created this podcast to just create really a safe space for you guys who are listening to work through your own healing journey, while also hearing some other people's perspectives on healing, spirituality, just the way our minds work, kind of help each other all feel like we're not alone in this. We always get like comments or feedback saying that people really resonate with what we talk about and they're really needing to hear it. So
And because we just like talking with each other.
But really quickly before we get into it today, I think we have a couple of stories and then a little bit of a topic that we're gonna talk about a little bit. But I did want to share we have actually 2 events, mediumship events coming up. So if you are someone who has lost a loved one on the other side and either feel like you can use some healing through grief and through some emotion surrounding a loved one's passing, we have an in-person event in Orland Park, Illinois, and then we also have an online event the next day. So the in-person is March 28th, and the online event is on the 29th. It's a Saturday night. You can go to our website, kaylieandcarol.com, and under the events page, all the information is there. You can sign up. I was going to say, if you're someone who is grieving with their loved one, but even if you just want to try to experience mediumship for yourself and kind of see what it's all about. I've had clients, I'm sure you have had too, that aren't even necessarily stuck like in their grief. They're just like, I just want to see what it's all about. I just want to see, what comes through. And they always leave with something, even if they feel like they didn't necessarily need a reading. More clarity and insight always comes through with what their soul is needing, because there was a reason they booked the reading. There's always a reason when you feel pulled to something. So check out our website. All of that information is on there, and we can get into it today. So what did you want to share?
So we went to an event this past week to see another fellow medium.
Which is always, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's always really fun, just as mediums, being able to watch mediums, because I feel like we always say we're always students, and it's good to just learn, whether it's their stage presence, how to become more confident on stage, or how to deliver certain types of messages to spirit. So it's always really fun seeing other mediums at their events. But.
Yes, because even with our events, each one is different. And we always seem to, that we say there's like a theme on each spiritual event, or we learn something. So it's fun to go together to these things. So I wasn't expecting a message or anything. I never do expect a message when I go there. I just really am going for the energy and the experience of it. Yeah. And so the lady ended up saying a name, Janet and Cancer she was getting. And nobody was taking it. And I know how that's like when I'm up in front of everyone and, you can't think of it right away. So I whispered to Kaylie, I'm like, well, my mom had cancer and Janet was her hospice nurse. She's like, what? Raise your hand. I'm like, I don't know if it's enough.
Well, too, I feel like because we're mediums, we're a little more hesitant to raise our hand just because we are in this work. And so if it is for someone else, we'd rather, I feel like, them get the message, but no one was raising it. I really do feel like it was.
So I kind of wanted to, I wanted to be able to take it for her because nobody was raising their hand. So I raised my hand and I told her, she's like, okay. And she thought about it do you even remember it? She thought about it for a minute, but basically she said, okay, your mother is saying she wants you to thank her for the long talks, and at the end of her life, their conversations. Thank you. And I was like, okay, thank you for the message. And that was it. That was the whole message. And she went on to other people in the room, but twice she came back to me and said, there's a way to do it. There's a way to do it. And I was assuming I know what she meant. I could track down this nurse because, it's 4 years since my mom passed away. So I was like, okay, but I know how spirit works, and I know sometimes it's exactly what that person needs to hear. I think it needs to be this big message, and possibly one in there for me too, since it's my mom. But no, it was just a thank you for our talks, and it did jog my memory back. And I think another nurse, not this one in particular, mentioned like something about my mom and our talks, like something like that. So I was like, it's not far off. But again, so then we know when we get a message, like just like we tell our clients, you have to discern it. And so I thought, okay, that was a hello from my mom for sure. Now I didn't know if I should take it to that next step and reach out to the nurse. And so I was just letting it kind of, take it in for a couple days. And then I was talking to another medium friend, and we were going back and forth about it. She's like, honestly, I really just think it was for you. Just because there was nothing else really to it except a thank you. And I'm like, yeah, but I even know how important those thank yous are sometimes. So I was still like, okay, you're right. At least I don't have to do it, whatever. So that morning, which was yesterday, I went and got coffee, and that's where my mom talks to me all the time. And it was my daughter's birthday, 21st birthday party. So my mom and dad both had shown up quite a bit yesterday. And so then I went and got coffee, and I heard very clear, like, to get them coffee behind me, like, pay it forward. And whenever this happens, I'm usually not prepared. I don't know what I think these cars are going to, like, chase me down and say thank you, or a simple thank you. But I always get so embarrassed, and I have to make sure the person looks like, I don't know what they have to look like, honestly, harmless or whatever. So I'm like, no, not today. Like, I have too much going on. I was telling Spirit, not today, please, just not today. And then I look back, and it's a guy, and I'm like, no, he's going to think I'm buying him. No, not today, please. And then his license plate said 444. So I'm like, oh my God, like, the Spirit was making it really tough for me to say no, but I still said no when I got to the car or to the window. So I said no. I said, not this time. I promise next time I will. And sometimes I do that with Spirit. And the one thing they do is they always give me another chance. That's how the story is going to go, always. So I leave Dunkin' Donuts, and the car parked right in front of Dunkin' Donuts is 333, which for me is a yes. So I'm like, okay, I heard you. So I go home. Anyway, then an hour later, my friend texts me, and I haven't talked to her in several months. We just talk a couple times a year. She lives, in Texas. And so she texts me, good morning, beautiful. I had a dream about your mother last night, and she said she just wants to thank you, and thank you for when she was sick, driving her to her appointments and everything you did. She loves you, and thank you. And I was like, oh my God, that's the message I was supposed to give the nurse. Yeah. And so anyway, backing up for a minute, at the event when I was telling Kaylie about Nurse Janet, she's like, I can't even believe you know her name. I'm like, me either. And I put it in my search bar on my phone just to see, and sure enough, her number was in there, and her last 4 digits were 1111. So I text her after the coffee story. I was like, all right, I'll do it. So I text her. I said, I know you probably don't remember me, but my mother was, Kathleen 4 years ago. And she just, I'm a medium, and I was at an event, and she just wants to thank you for your, the talks you guys shared. And so that was it. She didn't reply back or anything, because I'm not even sure if that's her number now. It could be a work number, but I was talking to my daughter-in-law, who's a nurse, and she happened to hear, she'll never forget this nurse's name, and she happened to hear just last week over the intercom that they were celebrating her retirement. So isn't that
Janet?
crazy? Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I just got chills.
Mm-hmm. So,
wow.
Yeah. But the moral of that story, so then when I was telling Jenny, she goes, I wonder if we're going to see her somewhere. I'm like, see her? And she goes, that's just so, she just thought the whole thing was so crazy. And I'm like, well, I text her. She said, well, that could be her work phone. I'm like, oh, I never thought of that. And either way, I did what I was supposed to do. Spirit gave me another chance immediately.
And you
like,
listened.
and I listened.
Finally.
And now I'm gonna. Well, I usually listen, but sometimes, when you're discerning it, you really weigh the odds, and you have to feel it all at the same time. So I was very aware when I got my second lesson that. With the coffee, I wouldn't have thought nothing of it. The next time I would have listened for sure, like I promised. But then they showed up like an hour later with that. So,
but too, seeing how I'm sure, we can even just take a quick minute to talk about the synchronicities through all of that continued to show up, to show you, like you said, you're always going to do what you're meant to do. And so you didn't listen the first time about the nurse Janet. But I'm sure that's why Spirit put that in your head about buying that person's coffee, knowing that you would say next time because it was a man or whatever else or however you were feeling. And then put it in, everything just played out so perfectly so that in the end she was going to get that message. She was
And I was going to be telling Jenny, and Jenny was going to, I said, how would you know?
Yeah.
How do you even remember that nurse? I was surprised I did. She said, because I specifically remember, because I knew she was the charge. She had her whole story why she remembered her. But there was something else I was going to say about... What were you just saying?
Just the synchronicities, all the angel numbers through it all, everything that continued to show up to show you, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And I feel like that's
that's what I was going to say. When I left, promising, I promise I will do it next time. And I mean it. So when I left, I saw this man behind me, his whole day flashed in front of my eyes. I couldn't stop getting scenario after scenario.
Oh.
1 cup of coffee, what this would have done, what that would have, and I was like, please stop. That was on my way home. I was just getting to you're a little embarrassed going up there, just turn to him, smile, and say, you're welcome. Or simple. Spirit was telling me it's a cup of coffee. Yeah. And back to the message with the nurse, it's a thank you. And how it could go such a long way. A thank you or 1 cup of coffee. I was like, I got the message. So, but yeah.
But even that, like I said, the synchronicities, but going into how the messages always continue to unfold, I think too, and trusting the decisions that you make, knowing that that's the decision you're supposed to make, because you could have second guessed not wanting to, the reality is you didn't want to buy his coffee in the moment, and that's okay to listen to. That's a good enough reason not to, because you were never supposed to. Otherwise you would have done it if you were supposed to, but it was just to get you on this certain path. Well,
I believe to trust Spirit though, because when you build a relationship with Spirit, where you're literally working with them, and you want to show up intentionally and all those things, I think you get bigger and bigger, experiences or tasks or things, opportunities that come in front of you, because it's almost like anything. If I give you this much and you don't you know what I mean?
But I feel like it's a little bit of both, because Spirit told you to buy him coffee and you didn't. But in that moment you still trusted how you felt, it wasn't, you didn't take it on. It wasn't spirit is everything and you have to do everything that you like. You were able to discern it in that moment and then say you'll do it when it feels right the next time.
But I knew that I knew right away that it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. I should have done it. It could have been a big deal for that person.
Right, and that was your own intuition that you were able to listen to while also listening to, you know, that pull from spirit. It's like that middle ground that led you exactly where it needed to be able to then give that message to the person who was actually supposed to receive it this entire time.
Yeah.
And just seeing how like the messages always continue to unfold even when you think it's done and over with. I'm sure you like decided, okay, I'm done, like I'm not gonna, you know, tell her thank you, like we already decided.
Yes.
But then it came back again because that's what you were always meant to do. So
and I always say, like, when it's in through a reading, like, oh, they're very persistent because they're bringing it back again.
Yeah,
and same thing, like with, you know, like my mom was very persistent. She's like, no, you're going to do this. Yeah. Like, you could discern or not.
I think the medium said that. I think she said your mom's very, because right after she left, the very next lady, she was like, who's Kathleen? And the lady couldn't take it. And then you said, oh, that's my mom's name. And she said, well, she's very persistent or something like that.
Yeah. Yes, she is.
But just jumping off that too, like I had a client last week just showing how the messages always continue to unfold with the spirit world and things are going to come together how they are supposed to. We have sometimes during readings we'll bring things through or we'll bring certain loved ones through and our client will tell us like, no, sorry, no clue what you're talking about, that doesn't make sense, or they just can't connect to it or they can't think of it. It is common sometimes just because when you're in that energy of a reading, especially if it's like your first time, the energy is high, and so sometimes we're a little ungrounded in that energy, especially if you're not used to it, so you forget things. I think you forgot your brother's name one time or
something really really crazy. But it's because you're in that memory or something that they're sharing with you, so you're like, oh my God, like, and you're thinking about so many things at once, and it's all like there. So this particular reading, I'm not going to share any details or anything, but there was a loved one that came through first that my client couldn't take, and she wasn't sure of at all who this was. But later that night, she ended up emailing me that she figured out who it was, and everything connected. And part of her life too. Yeah, like it was a very close person.
Yeah. If it was just from childhood and they fell away for a little or whatever it was, which is why she didn't initially think of, you know, this person, but it all ended up connecting. Which is like when things come through, or like how you had to take that message and sit with it for a couple of days. Like that's what you should do with all messages from spirit, from a psychic medium, from your own intuition. Like just spend some time to kind of discern it and see kind of what's coming up, and everything, you know, that's meant for you will always continue to show up.
That's what I told Emily, that quote you always say, if it's meant for you, it can't be kept from you, something like that.
Yeah, and which I have been telling myself a lot this last week, just because there's a lot of changes that I'm going through, that a lot of people around me are going through, and which is actually what we kind of wanted to get into a little bit, is just talking about change and all of that, you know. Resistance to change, why it comes easy for some people. But anyways, I've been telling myself that because I feel like it's so true. When you can really connect to the belief, I think we talked about it in the last one, that the universe is always working for you. And so hand in hand with that, like whatever is meant for you will never be able to leave your hands, because it's meant for you. And that's how the universe works, because that's what your soul is needing. And so really just stepping into seeing that and trusting that allows what's meant for you to come to you. Sometimes people have so much resistance to change that is meant for them that it can push off or maybe even block what is meant for them, because they're scared to see like what's on the other side, or you know, move forward through this change. but like that's what, like through all of this, I'm something that's coming up for me is I'm working on moving out and finding a place. And there was a place that we found that I really, really loved, and we put a, offer in, but
And you got signs.
yeah, everywhere, dreams, like everything. That's why part of me is like, I still feel like we might get it, but
the numbers, like they emailed you on that.
Yeah, and but I don't think we got it. But that's why I like keep telling myself is, okay, well, what's meant for me? Like, then if that wasn't the place in my dreams, then I can't wait to see what is, because it has to be something better, and I really do trust that. But not only that, like choosing to believe that forces my mind to work in certain ways, to focus on how the place that I end up at is the place that's better. Like that's where my focus is gonna go. So that's what I'm gonna be able to really step into and to see. And even like going into that, like the question of how do people work through change, even if they know, or why do people resist change, even if they know like the change is, what's good for them, or how can they move through that if there's change that they feel like they're kind of being forced into, but they don't know if they're ready yet, but they can see the other side, or they can feel that it's going to be better for them on the other side, is stepping into like seeing that belief of how this change is going to serve you, even if you feel like, you're being forced into it, or like your hand, like whatever it was, your hands were tied and you don't, like, this is just what you have to do. This is just what has to get done. But being able to, like, that's why your mind is so powerful, and learning to shift your thoughts and your focus, which is easier said than done. And there's a time and a place for everything, but it's why some of these tools of learning how to shift your focus, I feel like is so important through moving through change. I keep hitting this mic today, but because when you're able to do that, like that's what aligns your energy. When you can shift your focus and your beliefs to see how this change is going to be good for you, it aligns you to the change, and it just makes that path so much easier, I feel like.
But have you ever been like in a situation where, whether it's moving out, like, okay, you're moving out and this place was perfect, whatever, and then it didn't come up. Do you ever, then what if you're just supposed to be where you are?
Well, but that's
like,
where,
how do you know the difference? Or are you supposed to find another place or open up to another area? Or, you know what I mean? Like, so who's to tell you it's because you put the action, because you're still going for it? You know what I mean?
But that's just like your own connection to yourself and knowing where you're feeling pulled and being able to listen to that. If I didn't get that place because I was supposed to stay here and I wasn't supposed to move out, there would be part of me that would be connecting to that would already be teetering, like, am I supposed to stay here? And feeling pulled to that.
And you're not. You're like,
sorry.
I'm going to go to a different location.
There's a better place out there for me. No, but really, for whatever reason though, like, but that's where it comes down to, like, that's your connection to yourself. That's why that's so important.
I'm just saying that because there's a lot of times when there's change for people, there's that or this.
Yeah.
So you're just saying it's moving out. So you're open up to, I don't care, maybe it's not going to be this spot. It might be 10 minutes closer, 10 minutes further.
Yeah.
Whatever it's going to be. But
yeah. But that's what I was kind of saying, like, change that you feel like was like forced on you, or like that you didn't have, like it wasn't your choice or whatever it was. Like, why, that's where I was talking about how important it is to have these tools, like I said, to learn how to shift your focus, to consciously choose how something is serving you and serving your growth and your healing, so that you can get aligned with that change. Because the more that there's a separation between the change that's being forced on you or the change that you feel like you have to do and where you're at and what you want or whatever it is, the harder that change is going to be, the more problems that are going to pop up for you, the more painful that experience is going to be for your soul. That's why, like, and that's what resistance is. And if there's resistance there, we have to figure it out. And in order to figure it out, you have to find a way to get yourself aligned to that change, even if you feel like it was forced on you. And to me, what helps me do that is being able to shift my focus to see how this is actually helping me. Like, I really, really wanted that place, but I'm choosing to believe that there's going to be a better fit, whether it's somewhere that's closer or somewhere that's nicer or cheaper or whatever it is. But there's going to be a better fit, because if I was meant to have that other place, I would have gotten it. Just like the message for Janet. If she was meant to have it, she was going to get it, and she got it because she was supposed to. And really trusting that what's meant for you can't leave you. But also trusting at the same time what's meant for you will find you, because it's meant for you. It goes the same way.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you are good with change?
No, I don't think a lot of people are good with change, and there's different changes people are good with.
Yeah.
Like, I could be good with, you know what I mean? And I just know that from a good friend of mine. She told me she moved like 7 times before, 7 times in grade school or something like that. That's a lot. And when she told me that, I was like, wait, like 7 different houses? And she was like, yeah, 7 different schools. And I was like, wow, but she's so sociable. She has a lot of friends, and she, isn't afraid to talk to, like, she's just outgoing like that. And that's why probably I was like, wow. So.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, I mean, even how childhood shaped that. But, like, I remember even as a kid, like, I would rearrange my room every once a month just because I wanted change. I wanted something different. I wanted a different energy, whatever it is.
And that's interesting, because I would always do that in my front room and my, like, more so my old house, because our second house, there was only one way you could put it pretty much. But I'm saying it's interesting because I don't really do that anymore. So it's weird to think about it.
And just as you were talking, I was just thinking, and what I'm about to say, like, doesn't mean it's the whole truth, but it could be a perspective, because I can connect to it, and I'm someone who I feel like I like change. Is I feel like sometimes it can come up for people who like change, which is interesting, because now I could see how it could be one or the other. But what I was thinking was sometimes people who like change can like the sense of, like, control that it gives them if they're the ones doing the change, I guess. Like, rearranging our room. Like, if I don't have any control in any other area of my life, like, what can I control? What can I focus on? And maybe it's cleaning my room, or maybe it's moving, or maybe it's whatever. But just, like, noticing, or asking yourself why. Like, why do I like change? Why do I resist change? Like, what is so scary about change? You can't answer these questions for yourself or move through change if you don't ask the questions. So, like, and that's what I feel like this is all about, or why we talk about these different topics, just to kind of get us all thinking about it, like you guys as much as us, because at the end of the day, it brings us closer to understanding ourselves. All these little topics that we do brings us closer to understanding ourselves. So it is really interesting, and change is such a big topic for people, because there's so many things in life that either, I feel like life is always changing.
Life is always changing, and there's so much that is unknown, even though we think we know, because we have our weeks planned, our months planned usually, and it's like when these things happen, whatever they are, it just sets things, that's when you learn like to be flexible or to do something that you didn't think you were going to do or haven't ever thought you'd do before. So
and that's where it's like, how do you surrender to the change like that's coming, because life is gonna come and life is gonna happen. So how do you let go of that resistance? And that's where I feel like what I was saying comes in hand, or why it's so important, is to get yourself aligned with the change. I feel like is the best answer I could think of right now. I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but because really I feel like it's not the change itself that's painful.
I do, because as you were talking about the room and I was thinking about that, I was like, okay, I know I don't enjoy change much. But because my change as of late, the last several years, has been harder changes, or changes that, the loss of my mom and just different things.
What I was going to say is I don't feel like it's the change itself that's hard. It's our resistance to the change that makes things so painful.
Which then again, to your point earlier, it's not really resistance if you have to be in that space at the same time. Yeah. So you have to process it the way you're going to, whatever that change promotes within yourself to process. And
right, because there's gonna be like that pain or those emotions or that resistance. It's gonna teach you something too. It's not like the goal is to never have resistance with anything ever again, because again, these resistance, the resistance brings us closer to ourselves and understanding ourselves, which I feel like is the whole point. Like everything that's happening for us is to get us to understand ourselves a little
And that's
better.
What I was going to say. I think that's what change does ultimately, redirects ourselves back to ourselves.
Yeah.
And it may be back to yourself cleaning your room or putting it in a different, rearranging it, because that's something you, like you said, you had control over, or whatever you want to do. It's your space.
Yeah.
And some people, reflected in like, oh, something has to change. I'm going to go on a diet, or I'm going to whatever, but it's back to themselves. I want to feel better, because when they direct it back to yourself, usually there's something that they either wish they would have done or want to feel better or something along those lines, want your room to look better, whatever it is that you want to change.
And so like the people who resist the change, like you said, it's bringing them back to themselves. It's making them feel good and safe. So the people who resist the change probably feel that the change is what's uncertain. The change is what's scary. The change is, what's not comfortable and safe. So where they're at now, it's predictable. They can understand it. They know what it's like, and that's safe to them. Whereas like I almost feel like for me, I like change because that almost like I can stay ahead of it, like if that makes sense. Like that's safety to me, is like that prepared. So if I'm the one doing the changing, then I'm good, like I'm in control. But some people find it where like they like to be where they're at, and that's what makes them safe. This is safer and better than whatever's on the other side of the change. And it's not that either one is right or wrong.
And that's what I was just gonna say. We say a lot of times too, like, the way is your way.
Yeah.
Like that's the way, because it's your way.
Yeah.
So anything that's bringing you back to yourself, and if you're someone who needs this, or a certain routine or a certain, because that's going to help you, I don't know, feel good within yourself.
But also seeing how like when some of those patterns need to change. Like I have to be able to recognize that when I'm doing something out of change, just for that sense of control, but not when I'm actually connected to it.
And that's where a little slowing down, like we always say, will show you that. Yeah.
Or like how, and vice
versa.
Forced
change, which points to, forced change.
Yeah.
Where it'll point back to yourself. And then, that's where you discern and reflect yourself and see.
Right. Which is why having that core foundation of your connection with yourself is what will help guide you, through the change or through these things that come up in life. I feel like so many people just want the answer. I did a Facebook Live a couple weeks ago, and that's what we were kind of talking about, how everyone is just like, I just need answers. I just need to know what to do. I just need the answers. And I feel like with this work, and with these things, change, resistance, that come up for everybody in life, one of the things that you can't jump around is your connection to yourself, because that's what's going to get you through it. Is being with yourself, honoring your needs, your wants, and connecting to where you feel pulled, is what's going to help you figure out what to do, whether you're supposed to go forward with this change or whether you're supposed to go in a different direction. Like, these answers can't come to you if you're not able to slow down and listen to yourself.
Yes.
So let us know how you guys feel about change, like I said, and whether you feel like you like it or you resist it. Ask yourself why, just to play with it. Like, this work, even if it's something that's harder or more difficult or emotional for you, like, this work, this healing journey can be like a little lighthearted sometimes. Like, just look at it as trying to understand yourself, not to heal, not to fix yourself. Like, you just want to learn about yourself. Just like a kid, going to school for the first time, except the school's all about you. Like, what can you learn a little bit more about yourself, and seeing it that way will lighten the energy a little bit, but also connect you more to yourself and what you're supposed to do, and the path that you're kind of headed down. So let us know in the comments how you feel about change and if you can relate to any of this. But we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.